I'm Dr. Tracy Stecker, and welcome to the Choosing Help podcast. Choosing Help presents conversations about courage, connection, and the transformative power of asking for support. Through candid discussions, expert insights, and real-world stories, this podcast breaks down stigma and opens doors to understanding. Join our community committed to compassion and courage, because when we choose help, we choose life. I'm Dr. Tracy Stecker, and I'm joined today by Mr. Ronald Pendley. Mr. Pendley has been a teacher in high schools for many years, and he has also taught at a prison. Today's topic is going to be one of the main reasons why many people don't seek mental health or substance use treatment despite having need for treatment. Um, um, One of the reasons why people say they aren't going to treatment is that they say that they don't need help. So what we're going to talk about today is exactly that person who might clearly be in need of help, but they say that they don't need help. So if you picture the type of person who is struggling with a mental health issue, struggling with addiction, they might have some sort of financial strain or problems. They might have legal problems. They might have extensive relationship problems. They might even be experiencing some health problems or housing problems. And you say to them, it looks like you're struggling. Do you need help? And they say, no, I don't need help. Now, the truth is, they do need help and they are aware that they need help. Needing help might mean different things to different people. So I'm talking about a chapter in this book, Choosing Help. The whole book is about reasons why people don't seek mental health or addiction treatment despite having need. One of the chapters is on this idea, people who say they don't need help. So what typically happens is the person who says, I don't need help, doesn't mean that they don't need help. It might mean I can't trust anybody. I have never been able to turn to anybody in my whole life to get help. So that might be one thing that they really mean. Rather than don't need help, they don't know how to trust somebody. Another thing they might mean is they've been going about it their way for a long time and they don't know any other way to do it. They're going to stick to their strategy a little bit longer. It might mean several other things. The important thing to do is when you are either have a family member or are talking with somebody who needs help, who seems to be in substantial trouble, and they say to you, no, I'm good, I don't need help. Talk to them, find out what that really means to them. The reason I brought on Mr. Pendley today is because he's had a lot of experience with people who might have some sort of need, but they're resisting seeking help. And they're saying, I'm good, I don't need help. So thank you for joining us today. And I would
Absolutely. Thank you.
love to just have you join in on this conversation, and give us some of your thoughts or maybe some experiences you've had with individuals who have been in trouble, needed help, but said, no, I'm good. I don't need help.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Tracy.
Yeah.
Um, the I guess I could start at the high school level, maybe
Uh-huh.
with because I feel like that there's a difference between a man's age and how he responds or asks for help or even
Uh-huh.
responds to the help. Um, a lot of times, for example, one example comes to mind that a student of mine was their grades were terrible. They were having discipline problems at school. And and I want to say this too. I want to say that, sometimes you can be so professional that you miss the problem.
Right.
And so all the normal pressures were applied to him. There'll be discipline. There are consequences. If you don't bring your grades up, you're going to fail. All the normal things were thrown at him as far as trying to get him to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And then come to find out he's almost starving
Yeah.
and he barely makes it to school. And there's some stuff going on at home. But to me, without the full knowledge of, like we talked about before, maybe sometimes data can be kind of one dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
I had access to some data in that situation, but not enough to make the proper response. And I felt like that once we established the actual problem, the
Hmm.
way that we offered help
Yeah.
changed the whole dynamic.
It wasn't about punishment anymore. It was providing food or helping with
Absolutely.
transportation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And those things were ingredients that had to be there for him to be successful.
Right.
And I think that that's an example of something.
And so
Also, there,
I'm sorry, just to
go
interrupt,
ahead.
but nobody ever said, "Hey, what's going on for you? You needing some help?" It was more like, "Well, you need to do better." Was that your
I,
sense of it?
I think that they did ask that kind of on a
Okay.
surface level.
Okay.
But I also think that a kid who's grown up in a situation like that learns to read the room real
Yeah.
quick. And if it's not earnest or sincere, or maybe put in a environment that is inviting
Yeah.
for him to be able to say the actual problems.
Hmm.
One, I mean, imagine this. So your mom does have problems and
Hmm.
your dad does have problems, but you do love them.
Hmm.
And knowing that they have problems, you don't want to bring any more problems on them.
Yeah.
So you're going to be reluctant to say things. That's why I think it's very important that I know that you can kind of group cases together,
Hmm.
but the truth is there are some things that you need to know all the information about. And then there are some instances where if you'll create an environment that's welcoming to all the circumstances,
Hmm.
then you catch them all.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they have to be, there has to be room for everybody in them.
Yeah.
The solutions or the
Yeah.
help that's needed.
Do you,
Um,
going back to that one student,
okay.
were you the one that talked with him to find out what was really going on?
Yes. And when we established that, from there, I had did the part of that I'm good at. We have set up some safe spot for him to say what he feels, what's
Hmm.
going on. I assured him that there wouldn't be any repercussions that would affect him that
Hmm.
weren't good or his family. And then from there, I prepped someone else for him
Hmm.
so that we could establish some boundaries and some things. And then they took it from there, in
Okay.
which was resolved, and everything at this particular story of this particular time came out really good. They didn't
Yeah.
always turn out that way,
Right.
but but I always cared about the ingredients that we brought into it. Like I don't know any, I know all teachers that care about their students go home and think about them all night. And then
Hmm.
they come in and they try things, and you're not good at what you do at the beginning because you make mistakes and sometimes you fumble the ball. But as you work through those things, you develop lots of ways of creating a conduit for them throughout the year before there's an issue. And
Hmm.
then for some of them, they don't need that and they continue on and
Hmm.
they do good. And that's great. But for the ones that did need it, it might be the last day of school. And it took all those days ahead of that to give them that one opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I have something to say, or I have a question, or those things every day was in preparation of that
And what would
moment.
you say your strategies were that worked for you? Because, everybody brings their own individual vibe to be a trustworthy person, to be an open person. What works for you? What worked to get you to get these kids to trust you?
I think one is never separating myself, like always remembering that, I would always tell them that you are me. I never want you to feel like that because you're in that seat,
Hmm.
because I was there once
Hmm.
and I had lots of obstacles in my life to overcome. I want you to know that you are me and that we are in this together.
Hmm.
It's what makes me successful is the same thing that makes you successful.
Mm-hmm.
And together we're successful. If you're not, then I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is that I tried to never forget what it felt like to be in trouble or in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with things like most men in my life that were struggles and hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also thought about the men in my life that influenced me and
Mm-hmm.
the way that they handled their problems. I tried to see the ones that were successful as well as the ones that were not.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were good lessons in life. Um, but I think that being honest and being honest is a funny thing, you know. Um, Sometimes the truth hurts
Mm-hmm.
as much as it helps,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so important to be in that place with them because I call it the American Idol syndrome. You watch American Idol and you see this person get up there and they're 30 years old and they start to sing and everybody's dying laughing and making fun of them. And the
Mm-hmm.
person's devastated.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that someone that loved them or cared about them would have told them the truth
Mm-hmm.
about where they are. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that I don't mean that everybody shouldn't be able to sing because you can and everybody, but if you're not in a place where you realize where you are,
Yeah.
somebody that loved you or was around you failed.
Right.
And it's not about being good or bad. I always tell the story about my son. When I was teaching auto body and we would paint and build these, my guys did such good work and built these beautiful cars.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to paint so bad. He's colorblind. And that was a hard talk for me and him, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's not that he could paint as many cars as he would like, but he could never match the color, no matter how much I loved him,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how hard he tried.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that as a father, the right thing to do was to establish that early on so
Mm-hmm.
that his resources were spent somewhere where he could do the thing that he's after, you
Right.
know?
I just want to emphasize that. So strategies that work for you and probably would work for most people, being honest, um, being trustworthy. You're
Mhm.
not gonna, um, ridicule them or punish them unnecessarily. And then empathy. It sounds like empathy, really putting yourself in their shoes, trying to understand where they're coming from, maybe even gathering more of that data to find out really where they are coming from. But that empathy, thinking about what it would be like to be on American Idol and realize then, unfortunately, then that's when you realize that you're not as good a singer as you thought you were, or
Yeah,
that you're colorblind. You can't really do one particular skill, but there's a lot of other skills. And so
absolutely.
for somebody with substance use issues or mental health problems, um, letting people, letting them know, hey, I see you. I see that you're struggling. I see that things aren't going well. Would you like to talk with me? I see you. Even just that is a really kind thing to say, right?
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens though when um, they're making you mad? Because a lot of people who are struggling with mental health or substance use issues, it can be easy to have empathy for certain people in that situation, and then it could be hard for others because their way of expressing what's going on for them is more in your face, maybe more angry, maybe they're stealing, maybe they're doing all sorts of stuff. And so in those situations when it's just a little more difficult to manage that type of person, you worked in a prison, which is why I'm asking this.
Sure.
What
Sure.
happens when they're problematic, when it gets more difficult? Because I do think it's really important and worth saying again, honesty, empathy, being trustworthy, having the conversations is really good. And then what happens when it gets hard?
Well, I think that's what I was saying about the dynamic about being younger and then as
Uh-huh.
you get older. So
Okay.
I worked in a men's prison.
Hmm.
These guys were older. They weren't
Hmm.
children.
Okay.
Um, I say that it was mentally sometimes depending on the rate of growth and maybe drug addiction or alcohol abuse,
Yeah.
that can be a loose term because maturity comes with experience. And if you've checked out for a long time, it takes longer to catch up. So,
Mhm.
with that said, I would, it's a funny thing to be angry about something or upset about something, and then to also help a person with those problems.
Yeah.
The dynamic is kind of a hard walk, and it takes one always remembering. Always say this. I say it about my kids. I say it about the kids at school. I say it about the prisoners that you should have as much grace as you need. Um, I know that there were times in my life, and this is how I do it, that I was the person making everyone angry. I
Okay.
was the person that was in the place where had somebody not loved me and been able to control themselves or see through those things, then I wouldn't have got the gifts, or I wouldn't have had the wisdom that they shared with me that ultimately changes your life.
Okay.
And I tried to remember that when prisoners come in, the same example, even though they're not children,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times if you go back to their life, you will find very dysfunctional, bad circumstances. And in some ways, they were rewarded for those things.
Okay.
So as a child, if you are rewarded for bad behavior, you can imagine, and I know you know this, but it always made me imagine what it would create as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And that was some of the prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I dealt with them, I tried to always remember that from whatever I do from where you meet me is to help you. And help doesn't always feel good.
Yeah.
And I really want to emphasize that because, uh, I have faith and feel certain ways about things. And sometimes forgiving people doesn't come with a warm, tingly, feel like a hug. They don't come by and high five you for forgiving them. And always remember that that's really about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're trying to establish a relationship with an inmate or a man or a student, it's important for them to know that you meet them where they are standing. Um, you don't have to gather up all the things in their life to bring them from where they are now.
Okay.
And I think that people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that the help that they want to give is help.
Right.
And so I might like for them to be a great mechanic or a great welder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it might make them $1 million. But that $1 million and being a good welder is way further away from what needs to change in them before that can even be something they can use in their life.
Right.
And so one of the things that I had a warden there. His name was Warden Dusty Bickham.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of faith-based uh, help for inmates who needed uh, extra things in their life, spiritual things, forgiveness. Um, and I know this is not exactly our subject, but I think that the root of most of these things, especially in a prison, come from guilt and forgiveness and um, a grief, lots of those things,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Trauma. Right.
trauma,
Trauma.
and those things are the things that need to be addressed ahead of what you're going to do now that you're okay.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that Warden Bickham done a great job of providing resources for them even with other inmates. And I think that's vital too. And the reason why I say that is, I go to the doctor, and I've got a doctor, had a doctor in Conway, Arkansas, and I had a doctor in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about before we had this conversation about what made me feel okay, because I'm a kind of hard sell on. I mean, I see the inner workings. I pay attention to people. I'm always learning about people to be that for them. So it puts the fella that's in that place for me under a pretty serious spotlight. And I examine and pay attention and focus. And I want to know the same things that I want to give the people that I'm helping about these people.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I thought about, this is not going to be fun to talk about, but it's very important, is that when I'm having in the middle of having uh, an exam,
Mm-hmm.
and he's working on me,
Mm-hmm.
and the exam was very uncomfortable. And he told me at this age, I have to have my prostate checked, and I've denied it 2 times, but he's going to do it anyway.
Okay.
In the middle of doing it, he's asking me what color to paint one of his tractors. And as funny as that sounds, when I left there, I thought, there are a lot of people I feel comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
but not that comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure it goes that way for him. Maybe he feels that way about a lot of people. I won't speak to that, but I want to speak to how important it is to establish that with somebody. And of course, not the prostate exam, but I'm saying that creating that environment allows me to let some guards down. And that's just one example. There were many more and better examples, I'm sure. But I'm saying it took every visit. It took uh, him being okay and
Mm-hmm.
him being honest and me saying, I would say, I'm all right. I don't need the prostate exam.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, after the third time, he said, well, I'm not asking.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to use me as a doctor, because I'm trying to help you and make sure you're okay, then you
Mm-hmm.
have the choice to not do that. But if you are going to come to me and I am going to do what I'm supposed to do, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving you the exam.
Yeah.
Okay, those lines are important
Mm-hmm.
because that's what establishes the real reason you're helping me. This
Mm-hmm.
is about me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's important to me. And
Okay.
even if I don't know, or I'm stubborn, or I don't see the need for it, and you do, and you care about me, then you're going to draw a line and say, this is why, and this
Yeah.
is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go long way around the world with that, but
No, that it makes sense because it applies to somebody, the same scenario. That was a physical exam, but if somebody is having problems with substance use or mental health problems, you're saying, listen, this person might not understand that your interactions with them, you're talking with them, you're caring about them, it is truly to help them. It's truly to help them see something they might not be able to see at that particular moment. And so
absolutely.
you're trying to find the ways to convey that to them.
Yes.
And maybe in that physician, his talking about the tractor must have been trying to get you to not think about what was going on. He was aware that you were uncomfortable, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Well, let's just talk about something else."
Yeah.
And
True.
yeah, and so maybe for you, it was like, hey, I don't want to be talking about paint colors right now.
Absolutely. But in the flip side of that is, I think part of the thing that helped me is that he was really interested in his tractor. I mean, we had been on his tractor for a long time,
Okay.
and the fact that he felt okay
Uh-huh.
about asking me at that time was important to me,
Okay.
um, because you know that's not exactly. I don't know how many doctors would have done that. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of unorthodox.
Okay.
And then also, I had a doctor in Louisiana, Dr. Tilley, and I came to him, and I'm using these examples to say the reasons why I use the things that I use in my life, or why I think some of these subtle things go unnoticed, and it gives you leverage on help
Mm-hmm.
or helping other people. So I noticed that a lot of men, he gave me his home phone number. That was number one, which was
Okay.
really nice, which
Mm-hmm.
is a rare thing these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he gave it to me because he thought I probably wouldn't call him very much. I'm just being honest. Um, And I
You were
did.
safe. You were a safe
Yeah,
patient
yeah,
to get
yeah,
there.
yeah. He was worried about me over a weekend, and I couldn't get a hold of him any other way. So that was early on. And then I noticed a lot of men would come to him for testosterone treatments.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how many men you've been around who talk about that, but it's kind of a thing, like around the blue collar guys and around the professionals that I'm around. That's not something we go around sharing with each other
Hmm.
as men. We don't.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean anything about you taking the shots or needing that or anything, but men are funny about what they will speak about or what maybe makes them feel like they're less of a man or more of a man.
Hmm.
But I noticed that he had a whole lot of patience that came to him for those kind of things.
Okay.
Um, and that's an example of someone who's good at opening the door for hard conversations.
Hmm.
And so that made me feel at ease about him.
Hmm.
Um, and he was a great doctor. But I think that the not needing help that we
Yeah.
were talking about originally, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that that has to do with conditioning on problems like I'm going to speak about uh, extended family and experiences in my life, coworkers, as a general, nobody in particular.
Hmm.
But if you were raised in a home with an alcoholic
Hmm.
and you didn't have much,
Hmm.
and you grow up and you become an alcoholic and you have a
Hmm.
little is a lot to you,
Hmm.
and it feels like so much more than you had. And I've said this before about that you would hear things like they're a functioning alcoholic. Well, the alcohol is what made them function.
Hmm.
It was their breaks from things. So if you come to me to talk to me about helping me with alcoholism, and I know it's the only thing getting me to work and back every day,
Hmm.
then I'm not going to hold on to that like something that's not important.
Right.
And then there are a lot of other examples of that, but the conditioning part, being able to recognize a problem and its severity is all related to your examples,
Yeah.
you know? And that's where I think that there are so many layers between help
Yeah.
and the actual problem
Yeah.
that the conduit needs to have a shortcut.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll give you an example. Like we used to go to the prison rodeo, okay, and we're having fun, and you can see people out there. There's thousands of people, and you can tell the ones that are things are weighing heavy on the prisoners, especially. Well, they have 24-hour access to mental health, and all they have to do is ask.
Okay.
Well, a lot of people, and then they have examples like so and so went to mental health, and he's done way better.
Okay.
And they're on the compound, like these are real world examples around you moving all the time. So they're relatable. If I'm in some small town in a rural area
Hmm.
and I work with guys who we all drive tractors,
Hmm.
well, we pass each other all day.
Hmm.
And the only counseling I get may be on the weekend when I have a beer with them.
Uh-huh.
And then, and why I'm saying that is some men don't feel comfortable like crossing over it, like we were talking about professionalism. If you're so professional that you don't relate to me,
Hmm.
I can't see if you can't even understand me and why
Hmm.
I like or feel or am the way I am,
Hmm.
then how could you possibly understand what's wrong with me
Yeah.
or how
Yep.
I feel, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
And
Can
then
I can
go
I
ahead.
even comment on that? Because
Yes,
I think it's
please.
a
Please.
really, really, really great point you made about the person who has not had much, and then suddenly they have something that helps them get through it. It's something that gives them a little break. It was in your example, it was alcohol. Somebody finally has something that's working for them. Their life is hard. Everything about life is hard and challenging for them. But when they're drinking, they're feeling better. And so when you approach them like, hey, looks like you might have a problem with alcohol, they're like, that's not my problem. Alcohol's great. That's the relief.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I even talk about in the book, but it's a really important point, and I want to bring it up, and it can relate to all sorts of things, but just because you go to talk with somebody, for example, about alcohol or sleep problems or whatever it happens to be, doesn't mean you have to give up alcohol to talk with somebody. I think a lot of people think if I go to treatment for alcohol, because people are on my case about my alcohol use, that means that you have to give up alcohol. It does not mean that. It might mean that you can work with somebody on how to reduce your use of alcohol. It might mean that you focus on all sorts of other ways to cope. Alcohol doesn't have to be the only break you get in life. There are other things you can work with people and find out other ways to find peace, other ways to get that break, other ways to ask for help or put up boundaries or get some sort of relief. Alcohol might be one way, and maybe it works really well for certain people and not so well for other people, and then eventually can cause problems for other people. But going to get help, asking for help, talking with people. You were talking about even just consulting with friends. Admitting that alcohol is your one break from stress. It's your one stress relief. That's okay. You can tell people that that is okay. I think that it's important to know that there might be all sorts of other ways you could get that break. It doesn't just have to, you don't have to rely on just one. That's all I wanted to say.
No, I think that's a great point. Absolutely. And identifying that. So,
Hmm.
understanding that someone understands that that's your break
Yeah.
makes you realize that if they're offering you better breaks
Or
with
other ones.
healthier
Yeah.
options,
Yeah.
that feels very relatable to you
Hmm.
versus you're an alcoholic and
Yeah.
this is a
You need to
problem. You
stop
need to
it.
stop.
Never
Yeah.
drink again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It feels
not
very
helpful.
different.
Hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. And then I interrupted what you were going to
That's
say.
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. I just was making those examples. You know, safe places
Hmm.
are good, but safe is still relative to a person's idea of safe.
Yeah.
And so I I think that we were talking about the rodeos,
Hmm.
so and that they have access to mental health. And then there are inmate counselors who will come to you and talk with you.
Okay.
Well, imagine in that place that you're the inmate,
Yeah.
okay? You're having a hard time forgiving yourself. You've got years of prison time that you're fixing to go through, which is in itself crushing sometimes. And of course it is mentally.
Hmm.
Um, but you have a person come who has been through all the things that you've been through,
Hmm.
and they speak to you in ways. I always thought about it like keys. You got all these doors up, and they just start unlocking these doors, and you're able to reason what they're saying and identify those feelings.
Hmm.
I had a friend who lost a child. It was very sad and sudden, and they were very young. And I remember thinking, and I was younger, and I was thinking, I need to think about how I'm going to help them. I love them. They've been a great friend,
Hmm.
family friend for years. And what am I going to do to make this better?
Hmm.
And through that journey, I realized that what I could do, honestly, was to be there and to to make sure, just kind of keep them on the road
Hmm.
and make sure they were okay and check on if they had the stuff they needed or if they were getting the things that were important, giving them a place to talk,
Hmm.
but never trying to relate because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand. I heard that in my lifetime. I thought about that in my lifetime. But until I actually got to see the things that were coming out of them from the inside,
Mhm.
I really realized, I mean, it made me realize that I couldn't relate. I didn't understand those feelings. And I
Yeah.
had no idea that something like that would create that in a person. And so it made me feel very different about help because if I tried to put myself in that place, it would actually hurt them.
Mhm.
No matter how much my intentions were to be good and to be there and to be helped. But and the reason why I'm saying that is on a basketball team you got 10 players and one of them's a shooter and one of them's a guard.
Mhm.
I don't feel like that in the systems I've been in,
Mhm.
they're set up that way. I need somebody to once I get the ball
Yeah.
and I know where it needs to be. I just need somebody to hand it to and them do what they're good at, and
Yeah.
them to hand the ball to the next guy and let
Yeah.
them do what they're good
Yeah.
at.
Or a
And
team.
yeah, because when you don't always make the shot,
Mhm.
but your chances go way up when you have a group of people who are approaching this from very different angles
Mhm.
and being able to well, like with my friend, people who had lost children helped him a lot,
Mhm.
and people who had overcome the grief, and not to say they didn't miss them and it's always there, but it wasn't crippling, and they had lives and they went on with their families,
Mhm.
and that was so vital to him. Okay, but that one element, just losing a child,
Mhm.
didn't qualify you for that.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
I'm saying that you could get bad advice from someone,
Yeah.
um, depending on how they received it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, it's important for people to have access, one,
Mhm.
at their level,
Mhm.
not having to reach so far up in the world that they feel uncomfortable to ask for it.
Mhm.
And then also, the one thing I learned about growing up in the country and being young was, all my aunts, my mother, everybody was a doctor. That they didn't have a degree, but anytime you got hurt or you were sick or you had a problem, they would address that for you. and and sometimes they were dead on and everything was great, and sometimes they weren't.
Uh-huh.
But when you're dealing with something that can be as devastating as alcohol and drugs and things like that, leaving things to chance or hoping for a good outcome and on the person's end who is giving the help is good, but not enough.
Yeah.
Hope and want is not enough. You really need to do your homework and you need to pay attention and be receptive to all the nuances that the person's sharing with you, because a lot of times it's the things they don't say,
Mhm.
not so much the things they say. So I hope that answered it.
I love it. I'm going to go back to the basketball metaphor.
Okay.
Um, uh, if anything, just to even wrap up our whole discussion today, the basketball metaphor, I'm jumping on it. I hope it
Okay.
works. I don't know if
Okay.
it'll work, but I
Gotcha.
hope it works. I think it worked. It worked for me. Um, no matter who you are in life or what you happen to be going through or where you grew up or what your circumstances are, you have a team that you can build that will work for you. And you don't have to hold the ball all by yourself. Getting through life requires a team, whatever that team might be. You get to choose your team. Some people in your life, maybe, begrudgingly, they're on your team, but that works in basketball
Sure.
too. Um,
Sure.
but make sure that everybody plays an important role that works for you. So build your team. Maybe you have a team in multiple circumstances. You have your family team, you have your work team, blah blah blah. But building your team is a really important thing. And think ahead. Like I think, hey, I can be a shooter for that person's team. Maybe I'm just gonna pitch in for this one game, but
Yeah.
I can really fill a role. And as a community, we serve. I mean, that's why we're here to be helpful. And so I just love that basketball metaphor.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Thank you.
totally jump on it. I think it
Uh,
really sums up our entire conversation. We talked about a lot. I'm going to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
We can
I'm
talk
glad.
about some other things, but this was a great show. Um, um, Again, if for anybody who's listening, if you want more advice on how to talk with somebody who clearly is struggling with either mental health or substance use issues, and they're saying, nope, I'm good. I don't need help. Step number one is find out what that means for them. Really try and just get in their shoes, have empathy, be honest. Obviously there's some struggles going on. From my perspective, I'm seeing somebody who needs help. Probably it's true that they also see it too, but there's this other reason, or maybe multiple reasons, trust issues. They don't know who to build their team. There might be all sorts of things going on. So talk with them about what that really means to them, and then you can consult the book for more specific advice. You can come to our website choosinghelp.com. You can contact us there. And there's also a bunch of resources for getting help. Mr. Ronald Pendley, you were wonderful today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and we'll go ahead and sign out. Do you have any
Well,
final parting words?
yes, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on, Dr. Stecker, and I appreciate what you're doing. I
Thank
know
you.
that it's changing lives, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.